Thokozani bantu abadala, igama lami Gogo Nomi. Today, episode actually, I think it's actually about me as Gogo Nomi. So what I've done is I've actually thought about it, Guti, how it's so weird how I'm actually interviewing everybody else, but no one has really had an interview with me, and maybe you guys don't even know who I am or like just anything about me and my healing work. So I thought that I would ask Mkhulu Neo, who's actually my second last born initiate, to come in and just hit up the interview for me. And maybe we do like a seat swap where he gets to be the one that asks me the questions. So thank you to everyone that's listening today. Thokozani, Mkhulu, over to you.
Thokozani batho ba bagolo, lesedi Kukhanye ho lona kaofela. The listeners of the Gifted Circle. I'm actually not the second last born, I'm the firstborn son.
Oh my gosh, the
Just
drama.
for clarity.
Hey.
It's a very important role. It's Nkosana, right? So get that right.
Oh wow.
Thokoza Baba.
Thokoza Kehla ninjani?
We're good, Baba. How are you?
I'm good. The drama.
What a privilege, actually, as an initiate of yours, to be the one to be asking you these questions.
Thokoza Mkhulu.
Thokoza. Obviously, the first question is, I'll jump right into it, rather. What did you understand being called to be, and what do you understand it to be now?
That's a tough question. So I think initially I obviously thought I was working for like an underground gang of people that are obviously really, really horrible and evil, who are sort of like trying to deter me from my worldly path. So if anything, this was like, and I continue to say this, the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Or, I mean, that's what I thought, because in the beginning, you're just like, why me? And you kind of feel like, I mean, there's so many other people they could pick in my family, and they pick me, the quiet one who is really just always minding their own business. So I think, just to be honest, like I hated the idea of being Isangoma, and it wasn't because I knew anything about it, right?
Yeah.
It was just because every time I saw those people, my hairs would stand up and I'd be really, really uncomfortable around them. But I think also my experiences with the journey, because I was so sick and I had so many episodes, like I didn't understand the correlation between something that seems so demonic, and myself. And I think as time goes, obviously my reality has been completely different. But I think the honest part, if I have to say, that I do still have some of those days where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a dictatorship. But I think overall for me, it's been a good one. It's been like a very sad and dumbfounding experience to wake up one day and actually realize, this thing that I thought was so horrible actually might have been who I am and just what I needed when I needed it. So I think I have my peaks and I have my troughs, but overall, it's quite an opposite picture that I have now of not just the journey, but spirituality as a whole.
I look at how the initiation process is, and do you think this has helped you to deal with life better?
Oh, hell no. I just think for me, the initiation process is a process of grounding more than anything. It's something that I feel that, especially because I think a lot of people know that I come from a background where I've been very, I won't say lucky, but yeah, sort of fortunate. So I think it was the universe saying to me that you've actually had it easy all your life. And we just need to put you through something that's going to ground you, because we feel like if you don't go through this, you're not going to cope with life. You're not going to cope with life's realities because you've been cushioned. And I think obviously at the time I didn't get it. Uguti, I had been cushioned. But I think as soon as I went to the world of just African spirituality, like there was such a deep realization that hit me just from first day of training, of just all that I had, that I realized that maybe maybe I did need it, just for me to be grounded and all of that. But I don't know if it's what I would have chosen for myself. And yeah, it's quite something.
That is interesting. So we all go into this with certain expectations. What were yours?
I think my real expectation was to get the hell out of there and live my life normally, because I was just tired of being sick, I had no intention of ever helping a physical person, and that's the truth. I was really there to help myself, I was not even there to have a relationship with my ancestors because I didn't care who they were, because I didn't like them, you know. Because why would I like people who made me so sick for the past few years of my life,
Yeah.
So I think my real expectation there was, Guti, can I just do this and get better and then continue with my life as I know it, of course, and that's all. Like, I didn't have, like, even when they say I didn't picture myself in a consultation, I didn't picture myself Nikaimiti, for example. I didn't know. I pictured the end and myself. And actually, that's what I did, because you and I are friends, right? So as soon as my journey finished, I remember phoning you and being like, oh my gosh, Mkhulu, I just need to go to Rosebank.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I did the first weekend that I was back. I went to Rosebank, I sat with you, went to a very nice restaurant, like what I was used to. I wore one of my expensive dresses, and in my mind, that's all that this was about. There was nothing else.
Would you say you got it even in that moment where you just wanted to have a normal experience prior training? Or would you say you were still going through denial of some sort?
I went through a lot of denial, but I think it came in stages, because it's like I knew in terms of my title what I had become.
Yeah.
But I think because also healing comes in stages for all of us, you sort of come home, then unale keple, where you don't actually have to help anyone.
Yes.
So you can be yourself. That's normal. You're going out with your friends. You're really just doing all of the things that normal people do, but I think you always have a knowing that that part of your life is sort of gonna end anyway, because you've now taken this thing on that you don't know what it's really gonna bring to you, So I think for me it was more like, yeah, I got what I wanted when I wanted it and when that was still me functioning, But I think the more I started to realize who my ancestors are and like the work that they wanted to do, I also gave them room and space to do what they needed to do with me, because I realized that, like, Amandla Abo, they were just so much bigger than me.
Yes.
And because of that, I had to make room for me to understand what is it that you guys actually want to do. I got to a point where I was like, I'm not gonna make anything make sense for me. If buza umuntu today, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna enjoy that, and I'm gonna flow with it, and I'm gonna be shocked with the fact that I can see certain things, So for the primary part of it, I was just excited with being right.
Okay. So you talk about you had several stages of denial.
Yeah.
What are those stages?
I mean, one of the things is that I don't know if people notice, but I don't like being called Isangoma.
What?
So because I don't identify with that labeling, or at least I didn't then, so I would acknowledge things like the fact that I'm a healer, but I would broaden it in such a way that you don't attach that particular title with me, part of maybe why I'm still in denial is because I continue not to wear beads, but it's also because in my mind, like, my questioning is different, right? My questioning has always been like, okay, I can do what you want, but I want to do it my way if the gift is mine.
Yes.
You know, but I think the core of my denial was more around intersevenza and like becoming a healer and suddenly not being able to fulfill my dreams as Unomi, let's say, you know? And I think that was what I was in calamity with. Just the idea in my head that I had that I would not be able to then fulfill my own personal goals, my own personal dreams if I stepped fully into that, you know? And I think it's a reality that we all face because isangoma, when you know it, typically it's someone who goes, sits in this room, hlale phansi ecansini for hours on end. Like you don't really see what could be joy in that, you know, or at least when I became an initiate, there was no joy in that. Or we thought.
Yeah. Okay. So I hear you. I'd like to jump to something else, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm cutting that short, but there's this very interesting topic that's going around, and it seems like an ongoing topic that everybody just has an opinion on, right? And I'm going to this because he talked about being a sangoma, right? And there's a certain process that you follow as a sangoma, right? And there's certain things this process over time unlocks in you, right? Then we have people who call themselves self initiates, right? What is your view on self initiation? It's confusing for somebody else to understand. What is it to you?
So I think for me, it's something that can happen, you know, and I don't think I'm opposed to it because I do have friends or people that are very close to me that I believe have been called to that part, you know. But I think where I differ is that I've always been an orderly person, you know. I'm a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 kind of person. And I talk about this a lot, Uguti. And that's why when I had to go do Istunya, I didn't like that because in Istunya, it was more like your step 1 and your step 2 and your step 3. There was no, this is the sequential way in which things are supposed to happen. And as a sequential person, I have an issue with not having sequence, you know. So for me, the importance of initiation is not around the gift, really. It's around the sequence and the layering thereof. Ukuthi, okay, lana gune step 1, gune step 2, gune step 3, maybe gune step 4. Ne? What that does for me, gumuntu, it gives them discipline. You know, because mawazi ukuthi mangihlala phansi, I can't stand up, for example, then it's clear to you ukuthi this is the rule, you can't like change it, or so we thought, you know. And I think for me, that's why I believe more in Uktwasa, because I'm very rule bound just as a person outside of Abokokobami, you know. Even at work, if you can't explain to me certain processes of how things are done, I'm gonna fail. That's just who I am. Like I'm a typical book smart. That's me kind of person. And so for me, Uktas, that's really that sequence and less the gifting aspect of it. Because I think if sequentially your things have been done right, then it's like you have been equipped ne-metric yakho, ne? Hamba manje ke uye-varsity emhlabeni, and then sikubone ukuthi career path yakho kahle kahle, what is it? Do you get me? But all of us, we can attest to the fact that us going through high school has equipped us with something. We don't always see it as the same things because some people didn't cope in high school. It wasn't amazing. But like I say, because I've always been book smart, I'm also like an overachiever. So certain things I would try and do more of if you are teaching me, you know. I think where, for me, Uktwasa was difficult is that I never fit the narrative in any case. So I was always the student who was failing whatever subject because I genuinely did not understand, you know. But does it mean that I feel Uti, I didn't like it? No, I was there. And when I was there, I was open to the process and I was doing everything. And then I got home and I understood it later and it was fine.
So actually, for clarity, right? I know I might be going a step back. What does it actually mean to be a self-initiate?
I mean, for me, it can differ for people. It can mean that your ancestors want to guide you through the process, and maybe, unlike abanye abantu, they don't want to have a 6 month, let's say, period or more than 6 month period to be trained. Maybe they need longer, And so over the years, maybe they'll show you the stages that they specifically want you to go through, and maybe they don't want someone else who is guiding them down that path. Maybe they can guide themselves, or they feel that they can, which, if I'm being honest, I feel we see any of our ancestors can,
True.
I think the difference is that then the question becomes an issue. And siyazi sonke sithwasile asakaqedi sonke.
Yes, I was actually thinking that, like,
yeah, so I think for me it's more like ukuba nomuntu okuhambisayo indlela, and ophethisa indayelo lezi maybe okufanele ukuthi udlule kuzo kule journey yakho, ne, of which some I mean, because I'm speaking to it more like a curricular, right? Your Kobela still might not do for you if these things are not part of the curricula, and that's maybe where you can say Uktwasa might fall short, because we do things more in groups there. And I think people need to understand, Uti, that's why it's really just the base. Yeah. It's really the foundation, and making sure that you have a foundation. And then when you are home, because you are equipped, you now can communicate with your guides. You now know what to do. You are the one that's now left there to unpack the gift.
Yeah. You're touching on something I was already going to ask, because I was like, for me, it is that Khutwaza is a basis, right? But don't ancestors in any way, any case, take over once we're done with that process?
I think they do, even when you're in that process, because for me, Uktasa also, it removes you from Disney so that you are in solitude, and that's why it's faster, if you're honest, because you've taken that time to say, Lamaman Slawa. Sorry, all I'm going to do is I'm going to listen. And I'm going to engage with you. And because I'm also forced to do certain things at certain times, it's like my connection with you, if it was a Wi-Fi connection, is strengthened in that time, because I'm focused on that and only that, you will be living there because you've been consistently doing this thing for such a long time, and 6 months is long, so for me, it's like, if you look at it like that, then it's a completely different thing to say, Manyo Twasa, it's to give myself time to go into hermit mode and really zone into this thing that is bothering me, so I can hear what it is, right? And then when I'm at home, it's to say that, oh, now that I know what they sound like, then the voice, I'm going to let it speak to me and let it actually heighten itself over time, But I've gone through a period with myself where I've allowed myself to learn and be in solitude without the many interactions zabantu bangaphandle, so that I can focus on my gift and like hone in on it, really. Yes. But it's not because ming figala. Like I sometimes say that to people who say, mina ngangibona clearly, because the things I would say to my friends as a child, I'm realizing I say some of those things now in conversation. Yeah. So the only thing now is that I'm more aware of my gift, and solitude gave me that.
Okay. So I like that now we've touched on how paths can be different, right?
Yeah.
The gifted circle conversations that you've had, right? You've exposed us, your listeners, to the many different expressions of spiritual healing, right? What has been the most interesting for you?
I mean, for me, all of them are interesting. I obviously think the one with Michelle is interesting for me, right? But that's because we have a completely different relationship. And it's because, as a very, very difficult person, it's very weird for my ancestors to have sent her, who's also not Black, to be the one to get me onto the right path, So it's like when I sit with her, I can look at myself before denial and after and reflect, whereas with everybody else, it's like I'm intrigued by the work that they do and also the fact that they've been allowed to do it in the way that they do it. So it's fascinating to me, But I obviously feel like the one Yaga Michelle is really what, when you sit with someone who doesn't know you and you really think that the person is going to tell you about everything else, but the one thing that really is the truth about you and your denial, and where you need to sort of stop blaming your ancestors and you need to take up the fort because you've agreed. You've agreed to the work. The clients are coming. What do you want?
What do you want? Yeah.
And I think as soon as she put that mirror up in my face, it was an opportunity for me to also say to myself, Guti, actually, she's right. I'm fucking this whole process up. Sorry to use the word.
Yeah.
But I am messing the entire thing up because I have a fear of something that I'm not even giving a chance, And I think for me to have someone of a different race sort of put it to me, Guti, you know what's funny? You can sort of unpack every other thing of who you are and lose those parts. But you can't lose the fact that you're a healer. So if I were you, I would get used to that and be comfortable with that, because you can lose your job, you can lose your car, you can lose all your resources, but you will still wake up in the morning and be a healer. So that is the part of you, because it's your core, that you really need to get comfortable with before you can go to any other area of your life. And I think she was so right that I quit my job. I literally saw her on the Saturday and quit my job on the Monday because she was right.
Sure. That's interesting. Do you believe that gifts evolve?
Of course. Because I think like it would be boring for you to be like in your primary stage all the time, So I feel like the more open you are, the bigger your guides grow and the more people you are allowed to receive in the line of work that you're doing, I feel like, because Mina, typically we'd say, Guti, and I say this to you all the time, Guti, I mean, just recently, I had a new Nzunza guide arrive, or I'll have a new Geza guide arriving. But these are typically people who are there to equip me in my line of work over the years, And I think it's been crazy to even see that evolution of like, oh, okay, how much is saying but it's also because they can trust me. They can trust me now enough with their work that they can extend it, And so I think that is also something that we don't realize. You start with maybe a certain set, but as you elevate spiritually, you grow. And so things can be added to your portion, or they can be switched up and changed because of whatever lessons that you need to learn at that point in time.
So as healers, we like to, create some hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right. Is there a hierarchy?
I mean, for me, it doesn't make sense to have one because I've always been, like, I always joke about the fact that I'm so tiny, like in my size and in my aura and in my everything, right? So then it's very easy for you to not see the healer in me, because I just, anginayo weight, not, physical weight, but like, nisho nesithunzi sami menginyathela endaweni, you can't feel the heaviness of the people that I walk with, for example, right? Or at least that's what I think.
That's what you think.
Right? But then I think when I do start with the work, you can hear Gutaibo, lomuntu lomdala.
Yeah.
Lomuntu lomdala mdala kakhulu. And so lo muntu lo, and I always joke about this, I lived with my great-grandmother on earth. I've lived with Okhokho bami on earth. So there is no way that they are my ancestors. Because ngihlushwe idlozi bona bakhona la emhlabeni ngiphila nabo.
So it has to be somebody old.
Yes. So mina ngiphethe ikhwama zabo khokho babokhokho bami. Ne. But I cannot walk around and say that to people because abanandaba. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Can you do the work? Have you been equipped to do the work? Because even the smallest one, uyafika maybe ngaleso sikhathi sengathi vele abantu ohamba nabo bancane bayakhula labantu kujoyina abanye abantu abasha. So manje wena wayifanele ukuthi sikuthathe for granted. Mina ngifila ukuthi umuntu, you must measure them by, typically when I go to you, are you helping me? Are you helping me grow? Even if it's in the smallest way, like what was my takeout in a conversation with you? And am I willing to then share that conversation or extend the message about you to other people, you know? And I think that's how you measure the weight. And I mean this, whether you are doing the good work or the dark work, you know, because that is really the reflection of umsebenzi womuntu. Like, truth be told, akekho umuntu ozoloku eza kuwe ubheda. You know, akekho umuntu ozoloka eza kuwe ungakhulumi mhlampe iqiniso kubo, you know, of whatever situation they are in. The crux of our work is that we work with people. You know, and people like people who can give them detailed information about themselves. But I think if I'm going to measure myself by saying, oh, Gogo Nomi, it's been, I don't know, over 10 years, then I haven't learned my lesson. You know, because in spirituality, you're always a child. You're always growing. You're always in school, you know. So for me, the weight of it all has nothing to do with your age or wuti in. It's about with the little knowledge that you have. And remember, I keep saying I was always the stupido. How do you make that multiply?
Okay. So you've mentioned that, okay, you've touched on the advice that Michelle gave you with the career and you left, right? But you're still in corporate now.
Yes.
Can we cover being called and being a career person and being a business person, right?
Yeah.
Foster, by pursuing careers and business, when we've got this, we clearly have this calling. There's this thing that we're called to do. But like initially you made a point about, I have my own goals, my own personal goals, right? Career may be important to me. Me personally, being a business person is important to me, right? And I don't want to be completely reliant on the consultation fee, the cleansing fees. You know, I don't want money to alter why I do the work and how I do the work. You know, what is your view on being called, taking the work, and being a career person or business person?
Yeah, so I think I've got like different experiences of it all, right?
Yes.
So for me, like, I mean, today, I had an interview today. And when I did this interview, I actually had flashbacks of me in debating in high school, of me being in public speaking in high school, you know. And what that told me is that every single thing you've been doing throughout your life has actually led up to the culmination of the person that you are now, right? Meaning, even me being in corporate spaces, I mean, that's where I learned how to speak. Really, you know, I learned how to speak in these two instances at school, but then the opportunity only rose again when I was in corporate and I was speaking on the brand, but not knowing that the brand is training me to speak as Gogo Nomi, you know. So I also can't say that that exchange for me was useless, because I wouldn't then be able to speak in like even here in front of you or in front of lots of people all the time. But I feel there's a time and a place for everything, you know. So I feel it's school of life when you're a healer. It's not just a endumbeni, you know, or a patient. School of life is when you go to corporate every single day and you pick up certain things. Like, are people kind? Do you want to be in a space that's consistently unkind over and over again? Do people value you? Do they value your worth in this space? You know, and when you contrast that to your healing work, what is giving you the better value proposition at that time in your life? You know, and where are you really happy? You know, and I think yes, corporate is very good at like, yeah, we can buy the cars, we can buy the house or whatever. But remember, as a very spiritual person, spiritual people's goal is really to get to a point where they're at peace so they can create peace in others, you know? And when you know that that's your worldly mandate, you will never make that mistake yokuthi wena ube comfortable nezinto because those things have financial gain, you know? So I think when you don't know like what spirituality really is and you're still looking at it like, ooh, laba bayangibhora, as in your ancestors, then it's very easy for you to make it seem like, I don't want to just take money from people, you know? One thing I want to talk about as I'm explaining this is that we do not get paid for the work that we do as healers. No, we get paid for our time, right?
I was going to cover that next.
Yeah. And because we get paid for our time and the value of what we've given you in that time, then it is fair to charge people that hourly rate or that 2-hourly rate because time is something that we cannot get back, right? Now, here's the deeper question maybe that we need to ask ourselves. Do I give you the value for that time? You know, am I underpaying or overcharging you, for example? You know, because sometimes I feel like I get cheated with the rate that I'm charging, but it's not it's not really for me about the money. It's But then on the other end, I'm like, I've had to also go through different corporate spaces in order to understand this about me. You know, so had I not been in places where a colleague gets treated badly in front of my face, it wouldn't make me feel different that I am bothered by the fact that people aren't treated well. You know, had I not been in corporate spaces myself and taken for granted knowing who Gogo Nomi is, I would not know the value between myself as Unomi and Gogo Nomi, you know. So it's sort of like what I'm trying to say is there are certain things that you have to go through that, like I'm saying, are still an initiation process for you so that you end up choosing what matters more to you. Is it your spiritual path, or are you just like those people who value money over every single thing, including your peace? I think with business, it's a completely different thing for me because for me, business on its own is a gift. You know, and because business on its own is a gift, I understand the logic behind spiritual people going in that direction because I understand ukuthi kunogogo or umkhulu wayephila leyo mpilo mhlambe ongene kuwe odlulisa leso sikhwama leso se-business, you know. And I think it's what a lot of people sometimes then don't understand when maybe they just can't get corporate jobs, or they go into corporate jobs and then the jobs keep rejecting them, you know, because what Spirit is actually trying to do is bring you to the awareness, Uguti, that is not your network. It shouldn't be there, you know. And I think as a healer, it's actually the smarter decision to make to just do your own thing, you know. What the own thing is doesn't have to matter, but the honest part is Gusi Futsitina, we are very stubborn people. It's very, very hard to be a boss to a spiritually gifted person. You know, and it's very, very hard for spiritually gifted people to also allow that room between themselves and their bosses. We are bigger than many individuals that we are in spaces with. And so whoever is around us can either feel like, oh, lo yang sindalo, for example, or you just make people feel small without you recognizing it, you know, and that's got nothing to do with you, right? It's the people that you walk with and who you carry, but it's still how people will perceive you. So it's a longer one, but I think I've tried to give the gist.
Yeah. Do you believe we're actually not called to make money out of this? We're just meant to fix people's problems and...
Oh, how? I believe that we need to make money, you know, but for me, it's more the time thing. Yeah, but why would our ancestors expect us to waste our time doing this whole thing, investing good energy, even if it's bad energy, into something all our lives and get nothing out of it, you know? Because then it's not a gift. It's a curse,
Yeah.
you know.
It's a burden.
Yeah, because when I'm you need to have a good quality of life. You need to be at peace. You need to, if you've helped 10 people in a day, be able to go out and wind through yoga, for example, because you need to declutter as well so that tomorrow, it's easy for you to help people with a smile, you know. But without the resource, how are you going to do that, you know? Uyezalana ngikugandela imithi ngikunikeza imithi. I pay for all of that stuff. It's not cheap. I'm in Joburg. I'm not somewhere where I can dig this stuff up. If I'm bathing you, I'm using water. We pay for water. We pay for electricity. So I think, yes, it's a beautiful idea to have, but we in a completely different time to Dala when you could barter unginikeza imbuzi or inkomo, you know. I think what we should be cognizant of, though, is like, how do we charge? Because where spirit is concerned, there are people that you are going to have to help for free, you know, and that is a spiritual contract that you as the healer need to pick up as soon as you do begin helping someone, you know. Uguti, no, man, this person, I don't know if I need to take their money, you know, but I think it doesn't also mean that you have to put it out there because people also aren't honest, you know. So I think when those people come to you, you'll know.
So, do you believe that there is an unrealistic and unequal expectation for, let's say, sangomas, as spiritual healers who have sit on the floor, right? When you go to a tarot reader, when you go to a pastor, you know, they have a rate, let's say, right? And nobody seems to question that.
Yeah.
But the moment a sangoma charges more than 50 rand to consult, people have negative feedback. What is your view on that? Like, where do we put our foot down? You know, yes, you mentioned that there will be times when you need to help people for free because they don't have the financial means to come, right? But at the same time, when do we put our foot down, right? And fight for our worth?
Yeah, so I think it's every day because I believe everything happens in networks, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's like your client base would have been filtered anyway by your guides. So if anyone is coming to you and you have to convince them to pay you, they're not part of your network. You shouldn't be helping them, you know. If, for example, someone feels in, then it's okay. Let them go where they feel that the rate is going to meet them and their needs, you know. We're not in the business of fighting over rates, but we are in the business of deciding what we can and we can't accept, you know. And the reason I'm saying in the business of is because we work with people, you know. So you choose essentially because in Dumbayako, Neagin Guti, should I be seeing this person? No, if I don't want to know. Like for me, one of the things for me is like, if you're late, why are you coming? You know? And I think it's sad because in the inverse, someone else would be like, yo, I booked an appointment with you, and then I didn't see you on time. It simply means your guides were not ready. It was not time for me to see you. And that's why you had to wait. You know, whereas I feel like if you're making me wait, it's a completely different thing because you have no idea who to ban.
True.
You know, so the message that I needed to give you could completely miss you because Maufiga, now I'm irritable. I must want to help you.
Sure. Okay, so now we're going to the topic that I'm really interested in, right?
Yeah.
Khotwasisa, right?
Yeah.
You're now on the other side.
Horrible experience. Horrible.
What are the biggest lessons and revelations from initiating others?
Yeah. I think my biggest lesson is actually abantu abafani. You know, like every different person who comes in and out of your space will not be like the last one, you know. And I think hold space for the good things that are going to happen in that sphere, but hold space for the bad things. And hold yourself accountable where you are the issue, but also like free yourself when you are also not the issue and it's someone else who's the issue, and maybe they're just there because they want to be you,
Yes.
or they want to be so much like you, but they don't want to put in the number of years that you've put in to be who you are, or they not realizing that you had a journey. You didn't just wake up in the morning and become that, But I think for me, it's also that, sense of community is so important. True. Because I've lived many years, just me, my Kobela, and it was good, right? But it wasn't as wholesome as the experience where you know that you also have a family and there's different people in that family. And today, this one will make you laugh. This one is good at this one is good at that. And you don't only have to count on yourself for help. You know that you've got a whole lot of people that is good at this, is good at that. I mean, now we're having this podcast and I know that, I can trust Mkhulu with an interview. Yes, to someone else, it's something stupid, but to me, it might be big.
Yes.
So I think that for me, but also the exchange of learning, because one thing I've come to, because I hated this thing, but one thing I've come to zone in on is every individual who comes into my space is gifted so uniquely and so differently to myself. So when I zoom into the different people's gifts, I'm learning a lot about what spirituality is, what it can be. Things like even length of time, ukuthi omunye umuntu thina siyabhula nje sibhule into ezokwenzeka after 2 months. Omunye, it's immediate. Like in a few days, those things start happening, Omunye, they are musically gifted, for example. Omunye, when you're training them in that time, you physically see signs of ancestors being around, Omunye, musically, they are gifted, and they can sing. Yeah. So when this person sings, you get to go into an escape, But I think it's also realizing and recognizing, oh shit, you trusted with so much that you have to step into teaching as well, So I'm a doer, right? So I'm an action-based kind of person. And when I trusted, that's how we learned. We didn't get explanations. No, it was like you look and you see. So stepping back and being able to also say to someone else, oh, manje, we're doing this. I think, you need to take note of this. I think you need to write this down maybe because, also not getting tired of people asking questions because you recognize that in this moment we are in, they're allowed to ask questions and that's who they are. Whereas we come from a stage where unfortunately some of the answers are I actually don't know because you just never asked because you were not allowed to ask, or well, so we thought, But I think overall, it's also been interesting watching my Kobela change in that time, like the lessons of how when you were my Kobela, you were not soft like this way, and now because you're people's grandmother, like you're so easy, and being strengthened by her through the process, to know the different angles of your Kobela. Angasakuthwasisi manje ubunyanga or ubungoma sekakuthwasisa manje ubugobela, ukuthi mawuyigobela inhliziyo yakho uhlala uyibeke phansi awukwati isikhathi eside mawunenkinga ubuyela kulabantu abakunikezile umsebenzi because of yiba abathumele labantu la. And the consistent reminder of ukuthi mawugobela usasesikolweni fanele ukuthi kubonakale ngawe ukuthi umsebenzi usawuphethe kanjani, and I think building that narrative for me, in a world where a lot of people don't have good relationships with their gobelas and so they can't reflect, but also still being in an interchangeable role where when my gobela is around, I become a student and I become a student fully. So I still won't raise my voice at her. I still won't, typically when I'm in the room with her, I'm a baby the same way as all my kids are, and I take instruction, So it's that I think it's been interesting in that sort of balance, and also realizing that, oh, okay, wena waphuma kini wathi uyokhothamela lo muntu lo angakudina usakhothama, lo muntu lo angakwenzani, so that narrative of ukugobela umthetho wakhe lo mama lo, that you've maintained this for over 10 years and it's not a struggle for you, because I guess also there's an outcome that I see, but just those levels of growth ukuthi, masithatha, we would be told things like mawinyanga ubayitapeti nyatheleka, mawinyanga awuzikhukhumezi uhlala phansi ngaso sonke isikhathi, and I think in this era of my life it's really, really making sense why those things were said, because remember, you can surpass your gobela in work, but by virtue of that person being entrusted with your knowledge base, they know more.
Yeah.
So I think we can look at it like physically, my gobela does not have as many clients as me, but spiritually they know more, and I think it's also understanding and recognizing that relationship is important, because you growing in so many, like I think about it sometimes like, yo, look patala inkomo gaiwan, but for the past 10 years she's consistently been guiding me through this. Is it fair? To pay someone once and expect for them to be guiding you forever and ever. Amen. Essentially, through all of the peaks, through all of the troughs, answering your phone and still answering phone yabanye abantu. And maybe even learning that experience ukuthi like mini phone angithandi, angithandi phone yang irritate, but knowing who to answer, when to answer, and that it is important for you to give an answer even if it's late when it's your kids, because you've been mandated to those people spiritually. Actually, you guys have a contract. You cannot just decide lo uyangikhathaza today, I'm not gonna so that's been interesting for me, do I like it? No. Would I have chosen it? No. Am I going through it? Yeah.
Okay. So I look at you and Gogo, right? And okay, I'll have friends who are healers, right? Who don't experience what me and my spiritual siblings are experiencing with you and Gogo, and that is this honesty, right?
Yeah.
And this sense of parenthood, right?
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about that is that the discipline is there. Alinya guys more discipline, right? But the love and compassion is there, which many Kobelas are not expressing to their spiritual kids. Like you've mentioned that many people about to about Sama and then come back. Why do you and Gogo do it this way? And how do you maintain like this harmonious household?
Harmonious, I don't know. I don't think it's harmonious, but I think also the journey that I traveled with her is obviously very different to a journey that people experience with their kobelas, right? I was on my deathbed when I went to that lady, So essentially, I was betting with my life, but she was betting with her gift.
Yeah.
And I think it was my first display of someone having to take themselves out of the normal routine of what you do for Itwasana and test themselves to save that human outside of spirit, And I think lucky enough, it's something that worked out for the both of us. But I think she almost had to take the glass and put it upside down in order to help me, which obviously was something that she had never done. She'd been a Kobela, but she had never had to take all of the principles of Ubungoma, throw them out the window, and still have Umgoma.
Okay.
So it was a testing time and relationship for the both of us. And I think because we both know that, we were the only two people that went through that together. So this test for us was important because she had gone through her own set of things and I had gone through a world, but I was not coming to this lady because I thought we were going to build a relationship. I was coming now with, as in Kusheng Africa, can I just pay this lady and go, But I think, for example, like Minameng Twasa, I always joke about this and people don't know. I was so sick that being warm, I like Njengokun, Nikodole, like cold, because that was what Umda was doing to me. So because we're saying Twasile, remember, I was not living in my Kobela's home like an initiate because Singu Kobela, and I've gone through Intaso, but things are just not going well. So I'm regressing in my improvements instead of getting better. My family would take me, put me in the car, ninjalo, put me in a bath at her house, naked, and she would literally bath me and pray until I would loosen up.
Yeah.
She would put my gown back on, carry me back into the car, and then tell them to tell her ukuthi ngilale kanjani every morning. So every single day with us was more trial and error.
Sure.
And then when I was recovering or recuperating, like when I say death, I mean it. This is when we started testing amakobongo, just to see Guti, how would my body now respond to this? Because really what had happened to me initially was that my body was rejecting amakobongo that I had.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think in that process, because I was getting better, it was more a thing of like, okay, cool, because you're better and velu twasile, go back into the system, muhambi mikiti and whatever, and then just come back and tell me uguti how things are going, And I think mini gobong ngalidli viki. I always tell people this, uguti mina ngadli gobong viki, ngayem kitini, ngabuya ngipula. Right? Meaning that I obviously went through a training first, right?
Yes.
But with this Gobela, the training that I had started afresh is obviously not the same as the training that I have with my kids. Right? I came back in that 1 week, my ancestors kneeled at my Gobela's gate and they said, thank you. This is all we needed.
Sure.
Now, the issue is that where I had come from, I had not been taught typically what I needed in terms of equipment, to be a healer. And this is when we started afresh and she taught me everything from zero. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Now equipping me with the package that is required for you to be a healer. But when I started helping clients in Ndumba, I didn't know bones, but I could see.
Okay.
So I was operating in my gift as itwasa kwakhe, but she quickly realized ukeli abamfundisanga inhlolo. So it was like, okay, throw the bones. Nobody else in the room knows that you don't know them. And so that's why I'm saying she had to turn the entire process upside down in order to train me. And the ease at which she was doing it, I think, is what created the bond between us. Because I was also, like I say, a very difficult person. It's like Bambing Kuka, and it's almost like I had to Guti on certain days be told, Guti as insist, I need to be born Guti, this thing is serious kanjani for impilo ungisbindi, and that's why now Shaimbuzi party 2 minutes. Because I understand now the seriousness of that. But I think what I'm trying to say to you is, Guti, she removed the healer part of her or the Gobela part of her, and she used love in the point that I needed it the most, and at that point, that's when I recognized, Guti, man, the relationship I might have with this lady is different, down to I would come to her and I'd complain, Guti, I don't have a job, so I don't have petrol. Remember, I had another instance where I had changed somewhere else, and there we were always giving. But lo mama lo mbengifika and complain, and when I would leave, she'd be like, "Oh, I left 200 rand in Dumbeni. Take that, poor petrol," And I think over time, there've been so many different instances of that where I'm like, okay, lo mama, when she advises me, she has a time yokuthi angitshela izinto and I can hear ukuthi yabona la akusa operate ubugobela manje sebu operate ubumama.
Yeah.
And we don't know, but that's why sometimes I feel like we also go through the things that we really need, because in some of the families that we come from, there is discipline, but akufani because ekhaya bayakuncenga. Ugobela wakho, if you recognize it, she might be teaching you things that you need, but you hear it differently because you're forced to listen.
True.
So I think for me it's been that Guti. Then I realized Guti, no man, this lady just wants the best for me. She doesn't really want anything from me. And also when someone is teaching you, yambona lo muntu ukuthi uyakuthanda ubunyanga. So you develop a different relationship with healing because you actually like, she loves this thing, I can't disappoint her. And it was interesting to me to watch her in her, place of work, like when she's teaching you and making this thing like, yo, yazi lento yinto enhle. Mongayenza kanje, uyenze kanje, mongayenza kanje. And you don't know it, but you're falling in love. You're falling in love with the work. You're falling in love with the process. You understand the sequence in which she does things, making sure every single time she does not make a mistake or error when she does something for someone. And then it's like she highlights slowly to you the seriousness of the thing that you are doing or that you've been equipped with. And I think even small things like, yes, unedlozi ngiyakubona, but let's fix your life.
True.
Let's fix your life so that you can start seeing and believing ukuthi idlozi into enhle because you've seen it as proof in your own life, And I think then you can't not extend that to the people around you because it becomes your vibration. It's like, this is the school that I come from. This is a school of thought that I've been taught in. So I can't undo that for myself now. So the next person who comes in, you train them in the same way, you treat them in the same way, and it becomes onus on them whether they want to receive you in that way.
True. So you said a lot, ne? And there's something going over and over in my mind, right? And it's the humility, right?
Yeah.
That you consistently maintain. And Gogo maintains with her Gobela. Right? What are the values that Kotwasa and now Kotwasisa? Because you're an example, right? You're a spiritual parent to us, but you still remain a child to Gogo and Gogo, right? What are the values that you hold dear to your heart that make you keep going and not have a big head? Because Gobela really walk around as kings and queens, right?
In your world.
Yeah, and you go to, like, when you go to other bandas, other households, and you see how they conduct themselves and how their kids respond to them, right? And there's almost fear, right?
Yeah.
What's important to you?
I mean, I fear my Kobela, right? But I fear her for the right reasons. It's not like I fear her because and I would like to hope that my kids see me in the same way. And I think they know, because you guys know that my personality shifts when I do ancestral stuff. And so there's no jokes when it gets to that. It's not, nothing is funny.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's like I'm in constant, like, almost mode, being reminded, phela umsebenzi wakho lo, And I think with healing, it's different, right? There will be small things that consistently remind you who's boss.
Yeah.
So yes, when ungafuna ukuthi uzikhukhumeze, ne, but sindlula entweni eziningi that show you that it's not necessary. Because actually this can be as easily taken away from you as it was given.
True.
But I think also it's because, like, I've been through like a very, very tough journey. Like, I'm tired of anything tough, so I'm not in the business of helping people for my ancestors to keep coming back and beating me. I'm at the stage where I'm like, yazini, ngiyanazi mina, and the only way for me to maintain a good relationship with you guys,
Is
where
to do
I
the
don't
right
go to my
things.
deathbed, yes, is to stay on my knees, stay grounded, and just follow the mandate the way that it's done, down to if mina I go for an interview, ngiyacela. I'm not there telling them ukuthi hayi kusasa ngiyahamba uyahamba utshele bani kanjani, endlini kabani esigodlweni sakabani, and I think more so now as I grow, it's like something that I've maintained to do actually, where I'm like, yo, sasa ngiyahamba yokhuluma. Can you guys please come up, because I want to make a fool out of myself in front of millions of South Africans, and just the magnitude of that weight deems for you to not be alone. You need not be alone. You need that battlefield of abo koko nabo mkhulu bakho to walk with you to these places and these spaces, because it's actually not that easy. So I think for me it's been a thing of like, I understand actually why these people were chosen to guide me, number one. But I also understand, Gucci, the work is not me as a person. The work is other people who are opening these doors on my behalf. And if they chose my Gobela and her Gobela to lead me, who am I to question?
True. They know better.
Yeah. So for me, as soon as I understood my spiritual mandate, I didn't question the people who are there to lead me. And I think more than anything, I've been looking more for ways, Uguti, I feel like my Gobela knows so much. How do I construct ways in which I get more of this knowledge over time so that I'm able to do what she's done for me with other people? And that's really been what I've enjoyed in my experience. It's sort of like seeing my Gobela see me grow in spirituality, but understand that I still need her.
Yes.
Like, I don't want her in my life. No, I need her. There's a difference.
So, moving there.
Yeah.
I constantly hear about Gobela horror stories week in, week out.
Yeah.
But lena le diphirelo na bo Gobela, or are you insinuating that there is no Twasana horror stories?
I don't know. I feel like there are people who think I'm a horrible person, and I think it's okay, but I think also as people, we need to reflect. Maungekho ready vele for your experience with me as a Gobela, and the reason I'm saying that is because equally like what I'm saying about my first experience, maybe the reason it was a horrible experience for me was because I was not ready. I was not giving myself to the process the way that I should have. And so my expectation of Izindo was not like what actually happened, Whereas when I met this lady, I was ready. Like, I was ready to kiss a snake if I needed to, for me to be well. Luckily, there were no snakes, but mentally, I was in a place where I didn't want anything. I just wanted to be better, But I think, Uguti, we live in a world where there's so much going on that I can't discount that I am a villain in somebody else's story. The only thing that I'm saying is that that's okay, because I would have been doing what I've been taught and what I know, and if I am a horrible person, tabulate it to me, be honest enough to confront me about you didn't show me this, as Fundi said this. Ask me the questions as to why. And then some things I can tell you, Guti, either I was not ready or I didn't know. Or, like, for example, there's certain things we'll hear, Guti, oh, a Gobela is horrible because they don't teach you imiti, And my thing is, like, vice versa, then where are your guides? Why are they not showing up for you? Because a Gobela's job, and that's it. So I think it's also that what our interpretation of Uthasisa is might not be what somebody else believes, So it's also aligning with your Gobela in those instances, Uguti. oh my gosh, should it be more? Should it be not? No, I've given you indawo, ne, where I'm saying to you, Tandaza, Pasha, speak to your guides in my own home, in my own setting, right? I periodically sit down with you, make you write things down, share my knowledge with you, right? And in that whole thing, like, this is where brains need to come in. Sometimes you do need to use your mind in that space, like taking notes. Like, I think for me, Istunya was that one place where, because now I'm operating also as Gobel, being creme. Yonke into Gobela atsigimi sayenza manje being creme, and then I write it down later. And it was because my mind knows that she might not repeat this, but she doesn't have to tell me. But it's also because my frequency was high, and so I understood Uguti. That's how some people teach. Some people are not going to sit you down and open a book. No, ubungoma, you mostly learn through experiences. Manhambile noqinisumuzi, niqinisimoto, you learn through observation, But we want to say, she's going to give me a book. In what if I didn't get a book? But by virtue of you having come into my space, what you needed, you got, especially if you finished, I think it's different where maybe you didn't finish, right? And I'm a villain in your story, but the reason you didn't finish is probably because you still needed a different journey with somebody else. And I equipped you with the stuff that you needed for you to move forward to the next place. But because as people, we always want to move. Like me now, I talk about my old Kobela a lot. There's a lot of things that I did learn from Ubaba and in my experiences, and those things were making sense to me later. This is the reason I had to go there. This is the reason that, some things were happening this way. Nisho, I think you treat Matwaza. I think Ubaba was very lax. That's why I'm lax. Nimfuzile in that arena, Yoguti, I'm very chilled. Like, if you see me upset, you've really upset me. But also, do I love that my other Kobela is very straight and she drills you? Yes, I do. She believes in Ukita, all those things. I don't like Ukita. So maybe for me, in my healing space and modality, it's not of importance, And I think people need to consider those things as well, Guti. The traumas that we go through as healers in our training will be reflected in what we then change when we are in our own healing space. Because you prioritize things differently based on your trauma.
Can Kutwasisa, and I mean from a Kobela's perspective, change you? You start the journey of being a spiritual parent, a particular person. Then you go through the years, you go through the different kids, kid after kid. Can it change you?
I surely think it does, because all of the experiences teach you different things, For example, Minangatwasa, and I was given the opportunity to pay my Kobela when I was done. In 2023, you can't do that because you can't trust people, Is it right? Maybe not. But because you've learned through maybe 4 or 5 people who you do help out in that way, and the same people spit in your face, you change,
Yes.
It's not a big change, but it unembeza wako becomes alert to different things, and so it does change certain things about you, For example, for me, I've preferred what I have this year, where I have like 1 or 2 people, because I can really zone into that person and what's going on with them, So I prefer that. And that change is something that I welcome, because I've noticed it about myself. Maybe when there's large groups, I don't cope well, So that is also something that maybe I can learn in a sense and say, oh, you know what's funny? In a group setting vs one person, I do change. But it's also because I learned that person and I zone in on that person and what's going on with that person. So if I notice that that person is good at something, I will then highlight it, because I want to build their confidence, maybe. But maybe I come from a background where you don't highlight anything. You just let people free flow because uzophaphela or uzoyikhukhumeza that person once you do compliment them. So I think in that instance, yes, they can change you, but I think also you need spiritual strength and stamina for you to make a decision never to let anybody else change who you are. So for me, that's been my biggest lesson, to say, in my mind or in my head, I'm a good person before I'm even a healer. If you can't recognize that about me, sometimes I think the issue's with you, But equally so, do you give yourself the time to understand me and how my mind works? Because for me, when I train you, this is business. It's a transaction between your guides and my guide. I'm not here to build a friendship or to build anything long term. I'm really here to hone into lentole oizelela. Once I've given you that, we can be friends. And I think some people don't understand that part about me, but it's really because I have to account to my set of guides, and I don't want ukuthi when I'm asked back ngithi mina yazi ngisuke ngahleka kakhulu ngakhohlwa. No, I would rather say ukuthi yazi ngiyenze yonke into ngamandla ami ukuthi ngimsize lo muntu, angisazi, ngicela ningisizeni.
So, as Twasanas, we have expectations of our gobelas, right?
Yeah.
Is it fair, right? And how do you, like, on your side, do you feel you need to live up to those expectations?
No, I don't try. Because there's so many people, you can't please all of them, right? I think for me, what I've seen is, Guti, the lengthier your relationship is with people, the better they understand you, the more they get out of you. Because we're at ease around those people. You can unintentionally teach them certain lessons when you need to have certain conversations, even if it's messages from spirit. You have other ways of sort of sharing that information with someone in an informal setting, maybe even and I think that helps you more. But is it fair to judge me off of a 6-month experience with me? No. I conjugate relationship between a boyfriend and girlfriend that you can really say is amazing in 6 months. So if I think it's more than that, you learn the person, you see ukuthi lo muntu lo unjani, and then you can gauge ukuthi, okay, is my Gobela a good person? The things that we've gone through together, are they giving me the spiritual weight that I need in order to go through umsebenzi wami, But I think what I'm trying to say is you'll never know if you don't give it time.
What is your proudest moment, right, in this journey of being responsible for others and teaching them?
What's my proudest journey? I don't know. I think obviously for me it's more recent because now I get to live with my twasas. I don't really burden my gobela as much, like with the tenets of the whole thing. Now I'm like more the one that's invested, and I'm just consulting her here and there on, okay, so I think maybe this past year was what was great for me, in that I knew I can do this most on my own, But I think I also can't pat myself on the back because I was also given an initiate who's exactly like me. So that was like, I feel their way of sort of easing me into the process of doing things alone.
Was teaching yourself.
Yes, by giving me a reflection of myself. And I thought that was more interesting than a proud moment, to know, Wuti, there are others like you, and I mean exactly like you, and being able to see Wuti, I must have been difficult then if all of the time being gula, all of those things. It was interesting to then say, oh, I'm in my Kobela's shoes now. How do I handle it when a patient you don't sleep? but you have a tosser that consistently needs to sleep because they're just not well. Are you kinder to that person? Are you harsher to them? Do you judge them because they're weaker? Or does it mean that spiritually they take longer to build stamina? But equally so, I think it gave me a chance to see myself, because it's like, yo, lo muntu kula exactly like me. Oh my gosh, there's more people like this. So it was funny, but also in a very hard way, because you're like, yo, Shubusi, I really get sick. So that was a bit also like, yo, this is crazy. But I think for me, that was the most interesting so far, because the similarities were very, very like doppelganger vibes, like crazy. So that's a chapter I'm still waiting to look at and see unfold. But I think, if anything, like every time a group of twices of mine goes home, I'm proud. Because then I know, Guti, these people, because ungening gate or pumang gate, they have the certificate from my ancestors. There was a contract that was bound to, it started, it finished. And those people, by virtue of just being born from me, genetically, our coding is similar. So they're all going to do well in whatever they do,
So, you know how we choose happiness, right?
Yes.
Are you choosing happiness in the space?
No, I'm not choosing. I've been led there, and the reason that I say that is because, like, I don't feel that other healers or the healing space has been kind to me. I feel like I've sort of winged, the whole thing and just happen to be someone that other people see as doing it well. So I think I roll with the punches, but I think it's something that has happened to me over time, where you're like, oh, okay, I actually like this. Oh, okay, I help people, and when they leave, I actually feel grateful for whatever message that I found that day. So in return, I'm like, oh, okay, wait, this day is actually fulfilling.
Yes.
And so it's like the happiness does build up, but equally so does the stress, the drama, all of the other things, the witchcraft that you can also face even, But I think I've chosen one thing here in the happiness sort of element, is to say, Guti, lento le mina ngikhula nayo, ngiqala nayo ngisesemncane, and it consistently repeats the same thematic for me. In fact, it gets bigger. So athi ngiyibone lento ukuthi izongenzelani, on the good days, the bad days, the happy days, the not so happy days, but because most of them are peaceful. And I think my pastor once said this to me, Uguti, you will know if you've chosen the right spiritual path if at the end of it all you're at peace. And I think when he said that to me, I was obviously still in a point of calamity, because things were not going well. But the day I recognized that, wait, suddenly ngilala kahle ebusuku, I'm at peace, and I've removed myself from a lot of the things and spaces that I actually did not need to be in. I started recognizing that peace was becoming a common thing. So ngisho ngingajabulanga, I'm at peace. And that is a completely different feeling that I hadn't felt all my life. So as soon as I reached that point, I was like, okay, maybe ngizohlala la, good right. It's difficult, yeah, but I'm at peace. Even if I make tough decisions in healing, I'm at peace. And I think it's a place that a lot of people in their lifetime don't get to.
True. True.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What was I was thinking about something. So, what are the biggest things that you hope that your kids learn from looking at you and having experience being taught by you?
I think the biggest thing, which I know people don't do, is to give yourself to the process. Literally don't, yabo mabathi, lean into your gift. Ungangeni uphume ngenelele entweni mawuthi you are doing it with your guides, because I think when that partnership happens, things unfold, things change, things shift. But don't be a 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of person when it comes to spirituality, because the regression that then comes with it has nothing to do with your guide. It's you, So if you feel, Wuti, I can do this, lean into it. Like lean into it fully. Don't be those people who see, today I want to be a healer, tomorrow I don't. And when you lean into it, I mean, be inquisitive, right? Do your research. Look at factual stuff, but also in the people that you're looking at, for example, thola ama-example right for umsebenzi wakho ukuthi okay lento le ngiyayithanda ngisho uthakatha, right? And I joke about this a lot, but there must be other people doing the work that you respect. You cannot be the only person in a craft or a field that you respect. And if you can't also learn from other people, then there's no point. And learning from people doesn't always have to be the big thing, because we selfish as healers. Ukuthi, like for me, I always joke, ukuthi, ngiyahleka nje nithi kunezangoma ze-TikTok, because for me, it's like, yeah, TikTok is funny, but for me, I don't trade in muti. I trade in maybe information, because for me, like, some things are commodities. Whereas teaching, I feel, is like, I can share ezinye izinto, but with us, like, our commodities is a completely different trade that makes sure that people come to us, So for me, it's like, when you lean into the things that make people want to cling to you, and the work and the way that you do the work, so that once you are there in that place, umuntu afunge ngawe nje ukuthi hayi mina if angikulo angiyi anywhere. And I think that's what then will also build your confidence as a person. Ukuthi, I mean, I joke about the whole thing about Gogo Nomi, right? Who's my initiate, but she was my first client, I think maybe that is my proudest moment, actually. Knowing Wuti, my ancestors could have this person come in and out of my space for years and years, who was my first client, and still give me that honor. Wuti, you know what? And you're going to chain her. Because that simply means, Wuti, when I want temba, ngazi nix. Literally. And the culmination of that was that now you are a healer, but we were both growing. She was 14, if not 13.
Yeah.
And I was in my very early 20s, but I was like touching and going there. So she's one person that when I look at her, I'm like, yeah, no, this, and I'm just trying to answer the question of like leaning in, Uguti. Yes, with some people, it actually also takes like very long for you to get to the ultimate goal. But I was goaling it with her.
Yes.
I was not doing it alone. And she was trusting me with that enough for me to consistently want to grow my expertise, so that one day I could be equipped to be ukobela, But also I was not doing it like, yeah, I knew what her problem was, right? But because I'm a very solution-based person, I always look for other means and methods before. For me, it's like Utasa must be the ultimate, like, oh my gosh, you're dying now, before we do anything else, because I want you to spiritually fit enough to cope with the process, but we don't all think the same. So for me, leaning in was that, like, oh, okay, ama-signs umuntu onedlozi wabona kanjani, do they differ? Do you compare the notes every single time your clients come in and out? Do you receive the messages as your own as well? To say, oh, today someone who was very stubborn came in and I told them off, but does that mean something about me?
So you started the New Age Sangoma.
Yeah.
What is the thought in naming it that? And what is the vision for the New Age Sangoma?
So, I mean, initially when I came up with that was because I knew that I would be different, you know. So, new for me was just like a bit different from, you know, everyone else. And at the time, it was just a naming convention. I remember there was a client of mine who was like, how are you going to get clients when you call yourself that? Because in all honesty, nobody likes new age healers because it makes it sound diluted, like they don't know anything, you know. But for me, I think it's like the semantics behind it. The whole thing, Uguti, on a digital perspective, we can connect with you on your phone, we can connect with you on your Zoom. You know, there's like I was introducing the fact that there is a new breed of healers that nobody's recognizing, you know. And I mean, when I did it then, I was not understanding Uti what I was saying, you know. And I think that's what then happens when I meet people like a Bruja, you know, who have never been initiated, but they can use tarot and they will
Self-taught.
send you these audio files, you know, and package them for you, and you never have to sit with them and you never have to see them physically, you know. And I think that is really the type of healers I was talking about when I was coining the term. Or I mean, I talk about my sister in almost every podcast because every time I'm with her, I'm like, oh, you're different, you know? And it's because she's my sister that I'm recognizing good. Oh, wow. Like, I find this thing yet, you know? Yes, yeah, fana because we have similarities, but I find, you know, sometimes I sit with you and I see how, you know, in Fisho Mundu, you normally just say that, you know. And I think there are people who like me, I like drawing the picture, but I then recognize when someone else gives a person exactly what they came for, you know. So meaning Guti, maybe Neo's or Neo's target market is someone who doesn't want their time wasted. They came for the one thing that is really the core issue, and that's it. But Omunimuntu would think, oh my gosh, like, no, you got the thing that is your actual issue. You know, everything else is like dilly-dallying around and doing a dance around. And I'm like, oh, this is so interesting that there are people who don't have to paint the picture for you. They actually tell you the one core reason that is your issue. Right? And there's a market for those people because I'm someone like that. When I go to a healer, funny enough, if I need something, I need that one thing. No, tell me about the one thing that brought me here, and the consultation can be finished, you know. Because if you don't do that, you could sit with me for an hour. You will say, oh, financially, you're not doing well. And I'm like, that's a lie. You tell me something else, and I'm like, no, that's a lie, you know, because it's not because you're lying. It's because you're not getting to the point of the thing that I came for. And naturally, I'm just impatient like that because I'm a healer, you know, so I don't want to know the semantics. I can do that myself. You know, so I think it's just recognizing those things. Oh my gosh, actually, there is a new breed of healers out there that I was probably prophesying in that name. Because when I did it, I didn't know what this new age Sangoma looked like. And it's funny because a lot of who I am doesn't really fit the category of that new age healer.
You love order, you love the basis of
Yes, I'm quite
trade.
ancient in my way, you know.
Here you are.
But I think it's also that I understood that, I mean, the conversations I have with people, that's new, you know. Teaching people on radio, that's a bit new, you know. The modalities that I've been gifted with to do the work is quite new, you know. Even the thing you consult on your phone, ngayitshela mina omunye ugogo ngingakathwasi ukuthi, oh, by the way, this is how you're going to operate. And at the time I was like, okay, this is odd, you know. But she knew, actually. She knew because there and then she had already told me, bafake imali ebhenki, benzeni. And years later, you're sitting there and you're like, wait, this is actually me like helping clients all over the world because of one thing that this lady told me when I was 14. You know, so I think that's the newness, you know. But I think the newness is also that, Also, my clients maybe don't like the herbs that I put in a container and so I need to package it differently in the soaps, in the this, and like really unpacking things from a mental perspective of this is the kind of healer I want to look like. You know, I want to have a website. Things I joked about. I used to date some guy and I used to tell him, "Guti hasn't found my website," you know. And it's so cool when later we then met up again and he was like, you know what's funny? We've both done exactly the things that we used to say we would do. But I think it was just crazy that the gift of foresight that I had for my healing modality and how it would operate, I knew then Uguti it would be different. Yeah. Along the way, obviously, I had people helping me. Like, I mean, I would have a chemist. That's something someone prophesied. And I was like, oh, that's stupid. I wouldn't have a chemist. I don't care about Muti. I don't even like being a healer. Why would I have a chemist? You know? And one day you wake up and you're selling herbal products. And it's like, oh, I have something like a chemist, you know? And then now I'll sit sometimes my clients need to, uze ne Vaseline, uze nine. I'm like, oh, singing the chemical engineering lah, you know? So I think it's just that thing that you might coin sometimes, but when you look at it, you didn't really think about it deeply. But then the culmination makes you realize later, oh, na ile knew le. Na ile knew. You know?
When you put it like that, do you think maybe that was your guys then in some way subconsciously communicating with you where you're going?
I mean, yes and no, you know. So the difference with how, like, the impact on my work for me is that I was told when you're by Sangom is cool, you know. And I think that's part of why I hated the work. It was like, Sangom is cool, like Zinjan,
What does that
even
mean?
And then as you like get deeper in the work, you're like, hey, bro, this thing is bigger than me. Then you sort of start to comprehend, Uti, like, you know, this is what the other healers meant, you know. And the difference for me is that I've always been told by really old healers, you know, so I'd never, that's the funny part. I've never had a young healer say that to me about me, you know, except Siskuku, I think. But I think more than anything, it was like being chasing me, so abantu estrati. Umuntu engitshele nje ukuthi wena hayi wena uyoba inyanga enkulu hayi wena uyoba yini, you know. And so it was just a funny thing that would happen to me even ngingakathwasi. Abantu ngihambe nabo estradini umuntu athi mamkhokheli or ngihambe estradini umuntu athi makhosi. And I mean the mamkhokheli part hasn't really come to fruition yet.
What is Mam Kokeli?
It's a chief priestess.
Oh no, I see it coming.
You know, so it's things like that you will take as a joke. And then you realize later when you wake up, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've become. And someone told me this when I was maybe like 16, you know. So it's really that, but it's I don't know if it was my guides, because sometimes I think it's us, you know, when we challenge our guides and then we like to them, yeah, Nina, you must go big or go home. And they like, yeah, I will go bigger than the go home that you wanted us to, you know. But I think that's why then I'm enjoying the work, you know, because it never ceases to amaze me. And I'm always like, oh, okay, like there must be bigger than this. If this feels big, what's next?
Yo. Dad, this has been a big privilege actually. We can go on and on and on. I know. Onale airtime. And I do definitely still have a lot to ask, but for time.
Yeah.
You know, we appreciate hearing you be on the other side, and allowing us to learn more about you, your thinking, your experiences. Thank you for this opportunity. We wish you well.
So was it?
Everything that you're doing, everything you touch, it turn into gold. And I pray that your kids actually keep learning from you and realize actually they're very lucky to have been guided to you in particular.
Mkhulu. I don't know. I don't know if I must agree or disagree. But yeah, I think thank you to everyone actually who has listened to this episode. Just to wrap up, I think I did think that it is important for people to understand me as well, because I can't tabulate all these other healers and then nobody understands me and my way of thinking. And I think it's sad because if you're doing an interview on radio or you're doing an interview on TV, people only experience like a snippet of what you really represent and who you really are, you know. But I thought I would ask Mkhulu, you know, let's have a conversation about me before people are like, okay, you're talking to everybody, but no one's talking to you about you. Who are you? You know, just so that maybe in the next chapter, you guys understand why I have the people that I have on the show and what thought provoking conversations I'm trying to tabulate about spirituality as a whole. As I delve into these conversations, like for me, it's not really about Izani Gimi. No, I think I have enough clients. It's about there are so many other good healers in the space. Let's give them space. Let's allow them to show us and teach all of us, including myself, what they present or what they represent, you know. And that spirituality is not linear, you know, it's not a straight line. We all resonate with different things, but we all have spirits behind us that are leading us there, you know. I think there's also this thing of like, oh, inyanga za Instagram or inyanga za TikTok or inyanga za Twitter. And sometimes you also just want people to know that there's an essence behind that. Yes, you want to be big and you want to do big work, but essentially it's because maybe you feel like your heart is in the work. And so all of the conversations that you're having is really because you want other people to feel the spirit of Abu Gogo na Abu Mkhulu in a better way, you know? And I think I'm saying this today because someone said to me, you choose to be an influencer or to be famous, but you don't choose maybe to be gifted, you know? So as part of my wrap up, it's to say, I don't think so. I think that as spiritual people, we are mandated to take on certain callings, you know, and part of that could be that you are mandated to be of influence based on the bloodline that you might come from, you know. And if that is your spiritual mandate, do not deny yourself that position. Do not deny your guides that position, irrespective of who is doing the questioning at that point in time. And if people don't understand your spiritual mandate, then maybe they shouldn't be attached to you, you know, or even trying to do that, because you also, as a spiritual person, cannot go by what everybody else thinks of you when you take on the work, you know. So all I'm saying is that do what you've been taught by your guides and lean into that, even if it's not the same as mine or anybody else's. I know that today's episode was very, very long, but thank you to those who listened and actually got to the end of it all. Tawazan.